Wow, I love this new story I've written. I love the characters, the plot, and all the fun twists and turns. It's been really fun to work on so far.
That sounds like fun, Donald. Tell me about the characters and plot.
Well, there's this young woman named Elizabeth, who's a law enforcement type with supernatural powers, battling hostile spirits in her hometown. She's aided by her boss, an older woman named Martha, and her always in peril protege, a young man named Charles. They discover the mayor of the town has been possessed by a demon, and all of Elizabeth's skills are put to the test as she fights this demon in order to reinstate the town's leadership.
That sounds very intriguing, and kind of like Britain. At least, I'm intrigued by it.
Thanks! It's going great, but I'm 30,000 words in, and I gotta say, this setting isn't really clicking for me. This, pseudo-British setting. It's currently a gaslamp-type Victorian-era style steampunk setting, but I think it'd work better in, outer space. But it's so much work to edit everything. What do I do, David?
Well, as luck would have it...
This week, our sponsor is the latest in draft modification technology, the setting switch. Do you love the characters and plot in your story, but still feel a bit iffy about the setting you've chosen?
Yeah, I just said that.
Then look no further than the setting switch. Just latch this device onto your draft and input the desired setting for your story from an extensive list of options. Deep space, prehistoric times, modern-day America, inside a cave, 18th century Britain, 23rd century Canadian Empire, you name it!
Wait, Canadian Empire?
Yes, Canada will take over the world in the mid-22nd century. Then we'll all be sorry.
Oh, well, praise our future Canuck overlords.
Once your setting has been selected, simply flick the switch, and your story's setting seamlessly transforms with all the complicated edits accounted for. Every element tied into your setting is altered, including character, professions, sayings, dialogue, and so on. Here, try it on your story.
Sure, let's give it a go. Setting switch latched on, switch flicked, and whoa! Now Elizabeth, the supernatural law enforcer, is now Eliza Nova, a galactic ranger with a laser gun and space magic. The mayor is now the commander of a space station, and the demon possessing him is an extraterrestrial virus.
And what about Martha and Charles?
Oh, well, Martha's now Mara Sola, the star sheriff, and Charles is long dead since, he wore the red uniform.
That sounds like a wonderful change.
It is wonderful. It's exactly what this story needed, and I have the setting switch to thank for it. Thank you, setting switch. Here, let's try some other settings. Flick.
Wow, look at that. You've done the contemporary domestic life setting. Now Elizabeth is Lizzie the mall cop. Martha is Mary the supervisor. And the mayor is now the mall's CEO who's possessed by insatiable greed.
And what about Charles?
Oh, Charles got fired from the mall last week.
This is fun. Let's do another.
Switch flicked. Story changing. Whoa, now we have the Stone Age setting.
Yes, Elizabeth is now Elugabug, who throws rocks at saber-toothed cats, and Martha is now Mugthug, the spiritual leader of the cave people. The mayor is the other leader of the cave people, who's possessed by evil nature spirits.
And Charles?
Oh, he got squashed by Mammoth's ass years ago.
So many stories to tell, so many characters to write, and it all comes from changing the setting, which you can do, listeners, with the setting switch. Go to ritwit.com/sponsors and enter the code CharlesIsDumb for a free discount.
Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show that remains a beacon of light and escapism in an ever-so-real and unsettling world. At least until I go on to one of my existential rants about how much the universe sucks and we're all gonna die. Hey, speaking of which, the universe sucks, and we're all, in fact, going to die.
I mean, the death rate's 100%.
It's true.
The birth rate is not, but the death rate is 100%. Anyway, let's stop.
I guess in terms of everything that has ever lived, the birth rate's 100%. I guess some of them hatched, maybe, but...
So. No, stillborns.
Oh, true. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it, okay.
Not to bring up some terrible memories for any of our listeners. Sorry if that offends you.
Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. Moving on. This was just, despite
it was a harmless joke that ended up going off the tracks because it's
like come on. This show is a beacon of light and escapism in an ever so real and unsettling world. So let's keep it that way.
Yes, it's by going to our our usual segment then.
Yes, this is, in fact, our usual
Do you want me
segment.
to say it because you always have trouble saying it, even though I'm going first according to our notes?
What we at the Wit have writ. I didn't have trouble
All right, there you go. Not this time.
there. That's true. What we at the Wit have writ. What we at the Wit have writ. What we at the Wit have writ. There they go. Three times fast.
Something that I tend to do if I remember to do it before we start recording is I have a list of tongue twisters to practice, just to get my lips working and do some particular articulations in such a way that I'm hopefully not tripping over my words too much.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little secret to my success.
Yes.
If you could call this success. Maybe your definition may vary. Anyway, I don't know if it just feels... I don't know if it simply feels like I have more irons in the fire than usual, or if I actually do.
Yeah.
But I'm a little concerned about Nano. However, Donald has convinced me to give it a go. So while I can't claim progress as of the time of recording, being middle of October, this episode will release while I'm in process. So.
Yes, indeed. So, this one comes out November 6th, so, yep. By this point, you probably already finished it, honestly.
Well, it depends. Okay, put it this way. The first weekend, when I normally would make a ton of progress, I have a performance stuff to do.
Okay, I guess that's true.
Like, if I could sit down on the first being a Friday night, for example, and then go all the way to next Monday and have a ton of time in the interim to write, maybe I could knock it out by day 6, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, We'll get more on that presumably next time we do the segment. Anyhow, additionally, I had a fun experience designing my own dishware in a pottery class for a monthly article I create as part of my job, which I realize is straining the definition of writ, but I'll count it.
And writ, I think we've officially decided, is any creative endeavor, so I count it. So.
I should count all of my music practice. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
anyway,
I've said that before. You should.
I should. Well, anyway. Point being that actually I realized this after I wrote this note, but technically I did have to literally write the article, so I suppose that does count.
But is that creative, though?
Well, I mean, it's creative to a point because you have to figure out word choice and everything, and I actually start with an English base and then work it to Japanese, and it will be edited by the magazine's editor, so thank him so much, because he makes my crap sound somewhat decent and sensible, even if it's not right when I
That's good, but does he make your crap smell decent? Sorry.
Wow! Thank you, sir, for inserting your toilet humor.
Yes, let's go flush that away, shall we?
Let's just flush it out of here. Straight into the U-bend, where edits continue.
Nice, good segue.
I like to think mine are fairly decent. Starburst Season 1, where I mentioned my co-author and I are doing edits on that jointly to, have 2 extra pair of eyes roving over the thing.
Right.
And once those are packaged and done, we'll start investigating good places to publish our hard work. I mean, we've been working on this project for
many years.
On my document, I put the copyright, when we first started, I put that copyright at 2014. Now, I don't know how official copyright works. I just used the automatic symbol that became the circle C. I don't know if it's simply, I had this and I can tell you when I created the document such that it's copyright infringement or what. But,
well, I can tell you that 2014 was actually when I started this version of Megazoic.
Yeah, so been a long time, because now all 4 of those books are out. Buy them on Amazon.com, please. I don't know where we're going to publish it, because, as a story about Power Rangers, even if they're our own original characters, there's a limited audience, and so, mass publication is not in our plans.
Well, and also if it's fan fiction, it's not necessarily legal, so to monetize it anyways.
Well, I don't know how particular they are, because, literally, if we didn't reference Power Rangers, we could probably do it.
Well, you'd have to edit it to make it not Power Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to edit it so the terminology was different. Obviously, it'd still be based on, but it's not like we're using all the same characters. We came up with our own. So.
Right.
That said, fanfiction, the biggest problem with fanfiction in general is how much of it is original versus how much of it is derivative.
Yeah. Hence the
kind of like
we
when you
rip off,
file,
yeah.
kind of like when you file a patent, for example.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be within a certain range of similarity, and if you exceed that range, then the company that has the other design can block you.
Oh, okay. Did I tell you that my sister works at a patent office?
I know your sister had finished law school. Let's not talk too much about real life things in
Oh, it just made me think of that now.
But yeah, no,
I've said before I have 3 sisters, so the listeners won't know which one.
Yeah, they don't know which one. Anyhow, yeah, I ran into that in an episode of Suits. I love that show.
Yeah, I've heard of that show. Never seen it, but I'm sure it's good.
Anyways, so that's what I've written. Well, not counting the music practice that I've ignored, except for
for the purposes of this podcast, which is, while it is about writing, it is really about writing. But
which means that doesn't count. Anyway, Donald, what have you writ?
Well, the marketing campaign for my book is underway. By this point, November 6th, it's probably well underway. What?
Which book? When you said book, do you mean books?
Oh, all 4.
Or are they focusing on one? Okay, sorry, I just wanted to check.
So yeah, this agency is doing...
they're starting with the original and not doing the sequels. They'll roll that out later.
Actually, they wanted to focus more on the last book, which I think is kind of weird, but I guess it makes sense. It's the most recent one.
Well, okay. Remember when you were reading a book? Wow, shocker! I know, right?
I have no recollection of this faraway memory.
When you found out it wasn't the first one, and you're like, oh well, now I wonder what's happening.
That's true. Okay.
So. Maybe that's why. Anyway,
that's right,
sorry,
that.
continue.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so the agency is doing all they can to get my book to hundreds of different places and increasing awareness 100-fold. Like, they sent me a press release, and I'm looking over it, and I still have to approve it. So yeah, like it's like mentions all the stuff like this new author, has this book, and it's cool. That's exact wording from it.
That is the exact verbatim words right there. And it's cool. Therefore, you must try it.
Yeah, this new author has this new book, and it's cool. That sounds more like a computer has read 100 press releases and has said this out. So,
this is your template. Now fix it. So by the time that this episode gets posted, it's probably quite underway, and maybe you're at about 20-fold as opposed to the full 100. Because it's still in the
10
process,
or 20-fold,
right?
yeah, that's good, yeah. So, so they're going to send out this press release, and
once you approve it, right, you have final say over what they...
I do have final say. I already have some things I want to tell them to fix, so I will get on that. So it should be a lot of good stuff. I'm really, really excited and really, really terrified. Like, it's just, there's so much, like, this really... I need to tell myself that if this doesn't work out, it's not the end. But man, this is... By getting it to such a bigger market, it really will be indicative of how...
It could make or break your career.
Yeah, like, of how my book is going to be received, I think. Like...
Well, and, I've compared your stories to, like... parents and their children.
You have?
You don't want to let them go. Eventually it will happen.
Yeah.
Eventually it will happen, and it's kind of terrifying to see them fend for themselves, but it's a natural part of the process.
Well, thankfully I'm still here to kind of guide my kid.
Well, yeah, and if they're giving you, executive decision on on the press release they're making for you, then that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I will update you guys more next month on how it's going. Although, to be fair, by that point, they said that might take a while for the full results to kick in because,
Well, of course.
Increasing awareness isn't necessarily
Well, I mean, advertising is always a process, right?
Oh, yeah, so it'll probably take a couple months at least before I get some serious results from it, but...
Like, the current ad writers are writing for ads that will come out in months.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It makes sense to me.
Like, you can't make an ad campaign overnight. You have to plan, you have to predict, you have to figure out where the market is trending and try and capitalize on it by thinking ahead enough. And sometimes that means your plans get dashed by some unexpected change.
Right.
But advertising is slow. It's, the old saying I've heard is, if you have a good experience at one place, you might tell one person, but if you have a horrible experience, you'll tell 10, and they'll tell 10 people, and that growth is exponential.
A dang good saying, yeah. So there's no such thing as bad publicity, though. So.
Well, supposedly.
But yeah,
if somebody reports on an awful thing that happened, it might be bad publicity,
I guess
but
that's true.
it's still publicity.
I guess it depends.
Here's a random comparison for you: Roller Coaster Tycoon, the game that we both have known and loved for a long time.
Oh, it's
when
so
you make
good.
a roller coaster that crashes, nobody will dare ride the dang thing anymore.
I'd
say that's bad publicity.
I guess it depends on the kind of bad publicity it is. I get, like, for my book, for instance, if people say, "Oh, this book is so bad," it might actually make people want to read it because they'll be like, "Well, how bad is it?
Why is it? Yeah, why is it bad?" Yeah.
Now, conversely, if someone's like, "This book sexually assorted me," then that book will. First off, how?
I'm
second
sorry.
off,
I'm sorry. I think that would require somebody utilizing the physical book in a manner such that it would count as assault. But
right.
Wow,
but basically,
if
so. The word was the book came alive and sexually assaulted someone, then that'd be bad publicity, and people would not want to buy my book.
Oh man. And I can't think of how many talents, whether be they musicians or actors or something, that some report got out and then suddenly they got blackballed. Now, I'm not saying that it's unwarranted, that that.
Well, the whole
probably
Me
counts as bad
Too
publicity.
thing, but which is good. I'm glad
the
people are
Me Too
speaking
movement,
out. So
the Me Too movement, but if something like that happens, I could not call that good publicity.
No, that's definitely bad publicity. That's why I brought that up specifically, rather than just this book is bad. No, that's not.
Yes.
So,
anyways, you might say that by the time that this episode is posted, that the progress of growth of awareness of your book might be medium to large.
I knew you were gonna do that. And speaking of which. Yeah, I've been I've been lackluster on the segues lately. So thank you for poking up the slack,
Yeah, no, I'm doing this for your benefit. Anyways,
well, thank you. I appreciate
today, as you can tell from the title, we are talking about cast size. We've been talking about that for the last couple of episodes, and with the first one, we talked about the smallest you can get, which is 1,
yes,
or perhaps 0 if you want to get abstract, but we argued that's not possible. And we talked about minimalist, which is, up to you how much that includes, but we kind of said 6, like single digits is probably minimal.
Right.
Now, though, we're talking about medium to large character counts.
Yeah, the basic, the standard amount, I'd say.
I'd say so.
Conversely, that means, though, that we might have the least to say about this, but we can make it work. Most stories tend to fall in this category, but how can writers make the best use of this amount of characters? So let's talk about it here. What are the benefits to having a cast this size versus a minimalist or maximalist cast?
Predacon? No, I'm kidding. I know. Do you understand that reference?
I didn't hear what you said. What?
Predacon?
No, I don't understand that reference.
Sorry, last tangent for this.
Okay.
Transformers, this franchise.
It sounded like a Transformer.
They had a series known as Beast Wars, and the factions were not Autobots, Decepticons. It was Maximals and Predacons.
Ah, okay. I've seen clips of that show. By God, that CGI is dated. But, that's to be expected.
What, Beast Wars or Transformers?
Beast Wars.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I don't know if that's the right word, but since it seems to be the opposite of minimalist, I suppose it makes the most sense, so we'll go with that. However, this, middle-sized cast...
Minimalist.
Middleist.
Not to be confused with minimalist.
Exactly. Within this, there are your core characters, and that can be however big you want. Your instigators, your MacGuffins in character form.
Right.
Your once-offs, your comedic relief, all of those other character archetypes.
Right.
And so you get to choose the composition of the cast.
Yeah.
You get to choose when and where to deploy various means without limiting the scope of your story.
Right, exactly.
In fact, it actually enables it. However, You can also give all your core characters the proper amount of development without ignoring how many other characters could be involved.
True.
Last week I mentioned that, I like my core cast to be the size that we were, talking about. But they're not the only characters in the show.
Exactly, yeah.
Or the story. And that's this in a nutshell. It's really a sweet spot, like Goldilockian compromise in my book.
Goldilockian. Wouldn't it be Goldilocksian?
Well, I dropped the S because it's harder to say. Goldilockian rolls more off the tongue.
I think
And
Goldilocksian
it's not like people don't understand
more
the
personally,
reference.
but whatever. I don't know.
I'll Goldilocksy you. I don't know what that means. Sounds like a wrestling move now. But anyway.
What's a Goldilocksian with you?
I have no idea, but let's go and figure out what Donald has to say about this.
Well, basically,
size
it's
cast.
this is like Goldilocksian. Yeah, this is a good balance of having major focus on certain characters while also delegating other characters to more minor roles. Like you said, like the characters that get the most focus, they could be the size of the minimalist cast from before, but there's more of them, so the reader has a clear idea on who to follow, but the world doesn't feel so empty or narrow, Like this,
yes.
These had the focus needed for central characters, while the space for many others. It's the perfect blend, perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
I actually said space referring to the universe space because it's so big you can't possibly not run into something else, right?
Right. But yeah.
Sorry, that was my...
That's okay.
Anyway.
I'm Thanos. Mwahaha. What? I said
Really?
perfectly balanced, as all things should be. You missed that.
Because I talked over it. I'm sorry. Wait, no. What? I think you skipped a lot. I think you skipped the note.
I thought I would bring it up there. It's called improvising.
Okay. Sorry, we're so...
The cool kids call it winging
We are
it.
the epitome of unprofessionalism, and for more on epitome, please listen.
I'd argue Indiana Jones, the epitome of winging it, gets results. So
I'm not saying that winging it doesn't get results, but it helps if I figured out you were winging it, and I didn't, so my fault.
Yeah.
These stories tend to have all kinds of number in the cast count, but why is this the popular one? Why does this seem to be the most prominent?
Well,
I mean, come on, a smaller amount of characters should theoretically be easier to, balance.
Yeah, but if you have too few characters, you have to spend more time dissecting the characters in intricate ways, which, as I said last time, some writers would like to avoid.
Fair.
You have to.
I want my one-soft step-cousins, darn it.
Basically, what makes this number appealing to so many writers, though? Yeah, that's what you're asking. And that's what I'm asking.
Yes. Thank you for asking.
Of course.
Sheer variety without overwhelming yourself. Juggling all your characters takes practice, so this number is enough to add gravitas without bogging down your writing.
Right.
I mean, think of all of these reinforcements suddenly coming on the screen, these people united in battle that have not been focused on but are there, and they add that variety, they add that importance to the moment. Maybe it'd be easier to have fewer characters, but let's get real for a moment. You're not giving all these characters equal play as it is.
Right.
You don't need to change that. You
True.
can live off a basic character sheet for 90% of your characters, and that'll supply you enough to make the rest of the story go.
Right.
This kind of cast, you can have a bigger scope thanks to having plot be more important than necessarily the character depth.
Right.
Without becoming ostentatious or untenable to continue.
Right, exactly.
I mean, everyone knows that special writer who can properly treat all those lists of characters, but
right.
They're few and far between.
Good.
Even more so amongst our listeners, probably.
Oh, because we're so much better than them, and if we can't do it, they certainly can't, right?
You said it, not me. You don't need to make all of these characters...
I said it in a mocking way, as if you were saying it, yes. But I guess that means in a way we're not saying it, either of us.
Oh, really? You don't need to make all of your characters vastly original And so you can remove lots of that extra prep work. Like, it makes more sense if you have a group of people that all represent a certain thing. And obviously, each individual is slightly different, but because they are united by a common belief, a common idea, that they can suddenly come in and add bulk without adding weight. If
Right.
that makes sense.
That makes sense to me.
Anyway,
But
how about you? Why is this appealing to so many writers?
Well,
in
I
your
think,
opinion?
like you said, it would be, like, yeah, in some ways it'd be easier to have a smaller amount, but then you have to make all of them completely unique. Like, having this amount means you can make certain archetypes blend across multiple characters, while still giving them enough of their own quirks to make them individuals, so...
Yeah, I could see that. Especially when you have people who... I mean, if you compare it to the metaphor that I kind of used last time, how you could have all of them be vastly different and they have to be thrown together because there's nothing holding them together beforehand. This time, you now have people who, they're already in each other's social circles, but, there's more to them than that one thing.
Right, exactly.
And you can have characters that, come from various walks of life and still appreciate this other person, and they're part of your main cast, in addition to all of their friends who are talked about, but don't necessarily show up until the biggest moment.
Yeah, adding all the friends of friends. Sounds like you might have too many characters. So when would you assume that you have made too many characters, and therefore might be falling into the category of the next episode that we're going to have on this little set?
All right. I would say that, I mean, as I mentioned with the minimalist idea, how minimal is that? That's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
But if I had to put a number on it, anything over 1,000 can't be here.
Well, I mean, obviously.
All bad jokes aside, I'd feel uncomfortable extending this treatment past even 100 characters, and honestly, to me, that still seems steep.
Yeah.
So, you know what, I'm going to split them quote-unquote middle and say, like, up to 75, and that includes your friends of friends who show up for more than just one scene.
Yeah.
I'm curious, actually, how many characters I dwell on in my other stories. Like, if you count all those people that show up more than once, that you've given names to, that have lines of dialogue, if I actually painstakingly counted them, how many would there be? But I'm totally not eager to do this.
I remember I did that for an older version of Megazoic I had. I thought I had a lot of characters, but I think I had about 60. Like, so...
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was less than I thought, but I guess that's still a lot.
But, it's still a lot. You'd run out of toes. Counting twice.
Counting 6 times, actually, but yes.
No, I'm saying you count on your toes after you count on your fingers, and you do.
Well, that's not counting toes. It's counting toes and fingers.
Well, I was assuming that people followed the natural progression of after you've counted all your fingers, then you use your toes.
Oh well,
I'm kidding.
Do you know what happens when you assume, right?
I don't need that help to make you an ass.
I was just gonna say, what happens when you assume? You just become an ass. No, you and me about it. It's just you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Say that then. Sure. Here's a rule.
I guess
of
that's
thumb.
what happens when you assume. But
Assume. All right. If I assume you, I see you in court, sir.
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry, that was an awful joke. Anyway,
okay.
Here's a rule of thumb.
That's
if
this
you
podcast is awful jokes. That's all
in
it
a
is.
nutshell. Yeah. Followed by somewhat bad advice. Somewhat good, but somewhat bad.
Why does anyone listen to this? That's what I want to know.
We're grateful for your listener.
Yeah.
For you listeners, thank you. Maybe it's because our banter is so unusual, it's amusing. I don't know. Anyway.
We do have a charm about us, don't we?
Wouldn't you like to say we are adorkable, Donald?
I don't think we should try to be, though, because then that's just obnoxious.
Yeah. Anyways, if you have characters that only appear once, and you feel guilty about it because you're trying to keep your cast down, it's probably too big for this classification.
Makes sense.
That might not even be 25, by the way. Just saying.
In terms of when you said 75, I'm less generous than you. I think anything over 30 is too many for this type of story. Think of most contemporary stories, ones not set in a big fantasy world or whatever, and try to remember all the named characters. There's usually less than you might think.
Fair.
Once you go past...
And also more than you can actually remember.
That's true. Once you go past the half-century mark and beyond, you're definitely going in the direction of an epic maximalist cast rather than Predacon, right?
Maximal and Predacon, but anyway.
Predaconist and maximalist.
Predaconist, I guess. I don't know.
Alright, but anyways, if you have multiple characters... If you have multiple characters blended together in your mind, that usually means there's too many of them for this type of story you're trying to tell.
Well, and can I add one caveat to that?
Of course.
If the point is for them to blend together because they are similar, if you design them to be that way, that might be different.
Yeah.
But if you're not intending them to blend together and they do,
yeah, that's more what I mean.
You're looking at a maximal Predacon cast.
All these specific references.
I am taking as much mileage as I can out of this. Anyways,
might as well.
I don't think there's anything else to add on this size because I'm sure you want to get to the big one, right?
Yes, a man only interested in the climax. That's me. But
a man always seeking unnecessary enhancement, was it? Anyway.
Yes, I just like the bigger is better, I say.
Go big or go home. So, we can get to that episode. We're going to call it, that's it for this week, I think. Anything else to add?
Nope. Nothing
Before
else
okay.
to...
all right, no, nothing to go back on.
Add to enhance this episode. No, I'm going to stop.
Please do us all a favor. But if you'd like to get in touch with us, maybe you're having trouble balancing the characters and you want to talk with us about it. Maybe you have some specific episode ideas for us to do in the future. It could be one episode. It could be a full set. We'd love to hear from you. So please use your own email system or the contact page at MatthewDonaldCreator.com.
Yes.
And mail this address, Matt D.
Mail.
2 T's. At MatthewDonaldCreator.com.
Yes.
We do share Matt D in common, so please specify Donald or David, unless it could be answered by either of us, and that's fine. If you'd like us to share your content on the air, please let us know. We do respect your privacy, and we'd love to hear from you, but we'd love to share it with our other listeners as well, if
they
you're okay
want
with that.
to
So let us know. Speaking of listening, if you follow us via Apple Podcasts or if you come to us via Libsyn, thank you. Please like the podcast, give us a rating, maybe a review. If you
recommend it to friends.
We really do appreciate that. It's so helpful because it inspires us to keep going on the podcast. Obviously, we keep writing anyway.
Well, I have heard that our podcast is actually getting quite popular as torture for in Middle Eastern countries and prisoners of war. Please, no! I'll do anything.
If we ever attain such heights, I'd be amazed. But anyway,
back to the penis jokes.
That wasn't. No. That wasn't actually what I was going for.
Yeah, it's never what you're going for, but
it's always where it ends up.
It's less about, what you do, it's how you use it, right?
Anyways. So please, if for some reason you want more of us and you have a question, please send us an email.
If you just want to email us and ask one question, and that is why.
Exactly. We might not have an answer for you, but...
But if you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald 64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because back in the day, actually, believe it or not, I wasn't a nerd. I was a jock.
What?
I was a jock.
Oh.
A real, typical, meathead, sports-loving, beef-eating, beer-drinking jock.
Back in your day, you were totally drinking beer, right?
And back in my jock beer-drinking days, I played the most jock beer-drinking sport of all.
Oh, no.
American football. And 64 was the number on the back of my jersey.
What position would that have made you?
I remember those days, my meathead, sports-loving, beef-eating, beer-drinking jock days. But then I turned 8 and became a nerd.
Which is the square root of 64. Mind blown!
Whoa! It's all connected!
It's all connected. I was going to say, you kept saying jock, and I kept thinking you should throw a jock strap joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, I guess to continue the theme.
I'm glad
yeah,
you didn't. I'm glad you didn't.
Well, I just like to leave things to the imagination, you know?
Some things I don't care to imagine, and I can't help myself anyway.
Alright, well, we gotta end this while we can.
Yes, before it devolves further. So, thanks for listening to us, two twits talk about ridding listeners. We'll be back with more next week. Until then...
Keep writing. I'm Matt Donald.
And I'm Matt David. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. The Ridway.